Thank you for stopping by at the Movie Marquee. Our podcast reviews well-known movies and contains spoilers. The podcast may contain mature subject matter and mature language. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Quiet on set. Places, everybody. And action.
Welcome everyone to the Movie Marquee. Today's showing is the 2005 romantic comedy Fever Pitch. With me as always is Ken.
I like being part of something that's bigger than me, than I. It's good for your soul to invest in something you can't control.
And Ted.
Hey, Ump, get off your knees. You're blowing the game.
And of course, I'm Eric. Yeah, well, not the pride doc, but why are you shaving my balls? All those questions will be answered in this episode of Fever Pitch.
Are we going to answer why he was shaving his balls?
They might be. If you listen, we might go into some details on that. Who knows? Ted, tell us some particulars of this one.
Fever Pitch was directed by Robert and Peter Farrelly, with a screenplay by Lowell Gantz and Babalu Mandel. It has a running time of 103 minutes. It was released April 8th, 2005, so right before the baseball season. It had a budget of $30 million, but only made a box office gross of $50.5 million. Fever Pitch stars Jimmy Fallon as Ben Reitman, Drew Barrymore as Lindsay Meeks, James Sicking as Doug Meeks, JoBeth Williams as Maureen Meeks, Lenny Clark as Uncle Carl, Ione Skye as Molly, Siobhan Fallon Hogan as Lana, Katie Strickland as Robin, Marissa Jarrett Wincor as Sarah, Evan Helmuth as Troy, Zen Gesner as Steve, and Jackie Burroughs as Mrs. Warren. Now with this movie, because it is about baseball, there are several Boston Red Sox players make appearances in the film, including Johnny Damon, Trot Nixon, Jason Varitek, Jim Rice, Joe Castiglione, Don Orsillo, and Dennis Eckersley.
What, for like 5 seconds with Dennis Eckersley?
He was still in the movie.
Hey, they showed him early on, too, in the 1980 season with Jim Rice.
Right.
Which I had to double check because I forgot he was with the Red Sox in 1980. But he was. All right, Ted, what did the reviews of this one come in at?
Well, on Rotten Tomatoes, this has a critic score of 65%, so just below certified fresh. It has an audience score of a 60%. As far as our critics go, this was kind of either a love it or hate it. Let's start with the negative critics. We had Desan Thompson from the Washington Post. He said, even Boston Red Sox fans are likely to turn away in disgust. Scott Tobias of the AV Club, Barrymore has rarely been so bright and effortlessly charming, but it's all lost on Fallon, who often resembles one of those unfortunate SNL guests who freeze up on live TV, completely out of their element.
What? He's from SNL. He's not going to freeze up.
I know, right?
Whatever. All right.
Jonathan Rosenbaum from the Chicago Reader. The movie's sentiment is nothing new for the Farrelly brothers, but its complacency certainly is. Peter Travers from Rolling Stone said, it's sad to watch the kingpins of gross out try to dial it down to cute. Swing and a miss. Score 2 out of 4. Lou Lumenick of the New York Post. The Sox won the World Series. Rarely have filmmakers had a more wildly improbable happy ending forced on them. Well, you need all the help you can get, divine or otherwise, when your two stars, Barrymore and Fallon, have no chemistry. He gave it a score out of 2 out of 4. But then you have some really good reviews from our positive critics. We had Wesley Morris from the Boston Globe, so he's probably going to be a little bit biased.
Not too biased, I'm sure.
Right. Fever Pitch is respectful and heartfelt about the problems that come with extreme fandom and how they might impinge on the happiness of a person who couldn't care less about Carl Yastrzemski. He scored it 3 out of 4 stars. Karina Chocano from the Los Angeles Times said, it's a petrified view of love, for sure. But as Sox fans would surely attest, sometimes fairy tale dreams do come true. Richard Roper on Ebert and Roper at the Movies said, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen about what it means to be a diehard fan. And then our friend and muse Roger Ebert from the Sun-Times said, "Do not make the mistake of thinking this is a baseball movie. It is a movie about how men and women filled with love, motivated by the best will in the world, simply do not speak the same emotional language." He gave it a score of 3.5 stars out of 4.
Not bad.
Even though they were a little bit split, it was very easy to find. But the people who liked it really liked it.
And, the negative reviews weren't extremely harsh. 2 out of 4. You're still batting 500 for baseball terms.
True.
No one gave it a 1 or no star.
Yeah, I didn't really find any 1 stars or anything below that. There was a couple that were really critical that I didn't include, that were critical of Barrymore and Fallon. I really can't find a whole lot negative about Barrymore in this movie. I don't know exactly what they wanted, but whatever.
Typical Drew Barrymore movie, let's be honest.
Jimmy Fallon wasn't laughing during the whole time, so that was
it wasn't breaking character, right?
How could he mess it up? He essentially played Jimmy Fallon.
Right.
I think it's the best Jimmy Fallon that he's ever played. But
probably.
We'll talk about that later.
All right. Ken, tell us about the plot.
All right. 7-year-old Ben Reitman has just moved to Boston with his mother after his parents' divorce. His uncle Carl takes him to a Boston Red Sox game at Fenway Park. From that day on, Ben is a die-hard Red Sox fan for life. Ben inherits his uncle's season tickets once Ben's uncle kicks the bucket. And almost all of Ben's possessions bear the Red Sox logo, except for his toilet paper, which is the New York Yankees. 30-year-old Ben now teaches high school geometry. Ben takes some of his honor students on a field trip where they meet Lindsay, who shows them how she uses numbers in the business world. Ben's students dare him to ask Lindsay out, but she rejects his offer initially, and later changes her mind. Their first date doesn't go as planned. Lindsay gets food poisoning, and Ben takes it upon himself to nurse her back to health. They end up dating. Lindsay, who knows very little about baseball and the Red Sox, learns about the curse of the Bambino from the Ben Stadium Friends, which includes Al Waterman, a sponge salesman who also narrates the story. They continue attending games together, but tension arises when Lindsay is up for a promotion and begins working on her laptop during the game. Lindsay is knocked out by a line drive foul and recovers, but stops going to the games, suggesting to Ben he will have more fun if he goes with his friends. Things get worse when Lindsay invites Ben to accompany her to Paris. He declines because the Red Sox are in the heat of a pennant race and needs to go to the game that weekend. Before leaving, she tells Ben she might be pregnant. She expresses concern that he's more committed to the Red Sox than to her, and days later, she calls him and confirms she isn't pregnant. To prove he's not obsessed, he misses a game against the Yankees and escorts Lindsay to her friend's birthday party. Ben and Lindsay enjoy the party, and then afterwards, he tells her it was one of the best nights of his life. But moments later, he gets an ecstatic call from his friend Troy, who tells him the Sox overcame a 7-run deficit in the bottom of the ninth to pull off one of the greatest comebacks in team history. Ben becomes irate that he missed such an historic Red Sox moment, blaming Lindsay for making him miss the game. She is heartbroken, and they separate. Ben soon misses Lindsay and visits her in a futile attempt to reconcile. To prove she means more to him than the Red Sox, he plans to sell his season tickets. Lindsay finds out during the celebration of her much-anticipated promotion and rushes to stop him. Lindsay is able to go into the Red Sox game by getting tickets from a scalper. She's forced to go into Fenway Park on the other side of the park, which makes her far away from Ben to let him know not to sell the tickets. Desperate to reach Ben, Lindsay runs onto the field, running around the players to avoid security. She reaches Ben. She tears up the contract and tells Ben if he loves her enough to sell his seats, then she loves him enough not to let him do it. They reunite and kiss in front of the entire crowd before Lindsay is arrested. Al narrates that the Red Sox won the game and then beat the Yankees 3 more times to win the American League pennant, later sweeping the National League champion St. Louis Cardinals for their first World Series title in 86 years. Lindsay and Ben travel to Busch Stadium in St. Louis for the decisive Game 4. Eventually, they marry, and Lindsay conceives a player to be named later. Al explains that the baby will be named Ted Williams Reitman if it's a boy, or Carla Yastrzemski Reitman if it's a girl, adding, "Let's all hope it's a boy." The end of the movie.
Cool. All right. Ted, first time you saw it.
I was informed that the first time I saw this movie was at the movie theater, and I saw it with my wife. That's when I would have seen it. I would have seen it most likely right after it came out. I don't know if we would have seen it like the opening weekend or anything like that, but definitely in the weeks following. And I've liked some of the other Farrelly Brothers movies, so this would have been definitely something that we probably would have went to see.
Pretty sure in my back thinking in my mind here, first time I saw this would have been on DVD, and it was a DVD that I purchased from Blockbuster Video when they were going out of business, or at least selling off a lot of their inventory. Probably sometime in early to mid 2006, I think I bought the disc and probably watched it at that time. And I've watched it a couple times since, and then obviously recently watched it a few more times for the podcast. That was my first time, obviously. Ken? First time you saw this, and tell us why you picked this movie, because this is a Ken pick for ROM-COM February.
Well, I first saw this movie when it came out. I'm a huge Drew Barrymore fan. Drew Barrymore, basically from probably the late 90s throughout the 2000s, was a very hot rom-com actress. So I really, really enjoyed watching her type of movies. So I go to the theater to watch her type of movies, even if it's something like Charlie's Angels or Music and Lyrics. There's another one that
you're the person who went and saw Charlie's Angels.
Yes, I went to go see
and Full
Charlie's
Throttle
Angels.
too.
You know what? Actually, I did not see Full Throttle in the theater, but I did see the original Charlie's Angels.
Not to jump on your Drew Barrymore hotness, because I'm going to go in a different direction here, because I am infatuated with Drew Barrymore. But first movie I ever saw in the theater was E.T. And I know Drew Barrymore was very, very young, obviously, but it was, obviously, as was I.
Hopefully you weren't in your 30s and 40s.
Right? 8 years old. I was 8 years old in 1982 when I saw E.T. at the theater. First movie I've ever seen.
My wife and me have an agreement that if she becomes available and is interested in me, that I do have that out.
That fantasy went bye-bye for me when she started that horrific talk show of hers. Oh, my God.
Yeah, we won't go into the talk show.
I don't know what happened to her, but no, she's gone. Bye-bye. That's not the Drew Barrymore I remember.
I picked it because it's definitely one of my favorite rom-coms. It's a great combination of sports and comedy and romance and Drew Barrymore. And I like Jimmy Fallon up to a certain point. At this particular time, I didn't like Jimmy Fallon as much as I like him now, mainly because in Saturday Night Live, he was the guy who would always laugh. And the only time I felt like he was remotely funny was when he did impressions, because he's a very good impressionist. Actually extremely talented. He just laughs at himself just a little too much.
Well, this movie's now 16, 17 years old. So Jimmy Fallon, of course, has come into his own now with the host of The Tonight Show and other little projects he's done. He's definitely evolved into a top-tier entertainer in his own right. Let's kick off this podcast talking about the chemistry between the characters. And we bring that up because one of the reviewers that Ted mentioned said that there was no chemistry between these two characters.
No chemistry?
No chemistry.
No, he's a math teacher.
Need a snare drum there. So let's talk about the chemistry or lack of chemistry, depending on how we want to discuss this. We'll start it off here with Ken. It's your movie. Let's talk chemistry.
Actually, I think they have really good chemistry together. And I think that's because of Drew Barrymore. Because Drew Barrymore is kind of like the girl next door. She kind of fits in with almost every type of lead actor she's ever been with, whether it be Hugh Grant, whether it be Adam Sandler. She just has a way of being able to connect to whoever is her love interest in the movie. So I think it has a lot to do with Drew Barrymore. But I will not discount Jimmy Fallon in this particular movie being part of that chemistry because of the fact that I've seen him in other movies that, to be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of him as an actor in movies.
What is that movie he did with Queen Latifah?
Taxi.
Where he's the cop. Taxi. Oh, it was horrific.
Jiminy Christmas. I can't believe he pulled that out.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know why I pulled that out? Because on the DVD, it's one of the coming attractions. That's why it's stuck in my mind.
Lord.
I know.
Lordy. That's a low point for the both of them because I like her too.
It's like when we reviewed Almost Famous, and Jimmy Fallon has a little small part in that particular movie. He doesn't do anything for me. Anybody could have played that role the way Jimmy Fallon played it. So I like him as the host of The Tonight Show. I like some of the things that he's doing right now. We were talking about that show where the contestants sing and stuff.
Oh, the game show? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just a spin-off of one of the bits he did on The Tonight Show.
Right. It hasn't done a lot of film, but in this movie, I think he's perfect for the role here. We joked around that Jimmy Fallon is playing Jimmy Fallon in this, and I think to a certain extent that's really true here. And
In
I think
2005, he definitely is playing a real Jimmy Fallon.
I like his excitement. I like his energy for a Red Sox fan that is dedicated to the team. I like how excited he gets when gets the tickets. I believe that Jimmy Fallon is a Red Sox fan throughout this whole time frame. I think he does a great job most of the times of balancing that out. And when we get to the time when they break up a little bit, I do feel like it gets a little weird with Jimmy Fallon's acting because I don't think he's not a gifted actor in this area.
He's not a leading man. He's definitely not a leading role kind of guy. He's really great as a comic. His comic timing is great. He's great in the movie, but if you're looking for like a McConaughey leading role kind of guy, he just doesn't fit that bill, unfortunately.
He plays a lot of this movie like an excited Labrador. And he's super energetic. That's needed. That's what gets you into his character, that he's so into this. But where the problem happens with him, in my opinion, I think, Ken, you had kind of touched on this, is there's no nuance with this character when it comes to the part where reality comes knocking on his door. He's still trying to be that over-exuberant puppy running around and trying to still do that. And there needs to be more to the character at that point where you see different emotions, and it just doesn't happen, in my opinion. And I don't know how much of that also is the writing here, because I don't think the writers do him any favors as far as his character goes when it comes to when they finally break up. Because at some point you have your script, but then you have your casting. And this has to be on the Farrelly brothers a little bit as well. In my opinion, you have to be able to see that he's struggling to try to hit the right notes when it comes to all of the breakup and him being sad, because he almost comes off more angry than sad. His character has no right to be angry at anybody but himself. And he just doesn't pull that off. Jimmy Fallon comes off angry where he should be sad. And that's where I think there's a big connection. As far as Drew Barrymore, she gave everything to this movie. This is her vehicle, in my opinion, because she's definitely the biggest star in the movie. And she drives this car. It's her character that has all of the personality. She's the character that you feel the most connected to. She makes her character ultimately likable. And yeah, you do like Jimmy Fallon's character up until a certain point, and then he's not likable anymore.
I think it comes with how she puts it, that she loves Winter Ben. There's two types of Jimmy Fallon here. There's two types of Ben. It's the one where when he's not obsessed with the Red Sox during the off season, and then when the season starts and he's obsessive about the Red Sox. So I think that's the same thing here with his acting, because when he needs to be funny, he's extremely funny. I'm laughing at Jimmy Fallon, and I kind of disagree with you, because I do think he does make this his vehicle, especially in the first half of the movie. I think Jimmy Fallon is driving this movie. But I agree with you. The problem here is that once they're asking for real acting chops when it comes to the breakup, he doesn't know what to do here. Now, here's the question is, how does a Red Sox fan, how should they react? Because I do see the struggle here. If he's obsessed with the Red Sox and she's calling him out and basically saying, hey, the Red Sox are more important than me, I think he would be defensive. I think people who are obsessive would get defensive. And I think his character is right to be angry and mad. I don't have a problem with his character getting angry or mad. It's a question of balancing the angry and mad with the sadness. Like, for instance, the scene where he finds out about the Yankees coming back and winning the game. He comes up to her and basically he's angry and mean-spirited. When she basically tells him he broke her heart, he tries to revert back to the sad one. It just doesn't mesh well. There's something missing from going from angry to sad that I think might be on the writing in that situation, like you said. They didn't do him any favors with the writing.
In that instance, the one thing I've noticed about his character being in love with the Red Sox is he has a very kind of a hot, cold attitude. And when something goes against his normal routine of the Red Sox, or when something goes wrong in the Red Sox life or game or something, he doesn't think before he speaks. He reacts at the moment, off the cuff, and says whatever is on his mind. And then after he sees the reaction out of Drew Barrymore, then he's backtracking a little bit, going, oh, no, it's fine, it's fine. His obsession with the Red Sox is clearly the driver of this movie.
Well, it's like the scene where she tells him that they're going to go to Paris. He's like, oh, I'm going to be busy that weekend. And she thinks it's work, but no, he admits I would have told her it was work. He admits it was the Red Sox. They're 2 games out. Then he tries to backtrack that.
Hold on a second. There's no way he's going to be able to lie to her about why he's not going to go.
Oh, he's never lied to her in this movie.
Yeah,
he's upfront and honest about everything.
But Ken
I'm saying I would do that.
Work.
I'm not saying.
Ken would lie.
Yeah,
Ken would lie. Sure.
There's no way in hell she's going to know immediately why he's not.
Well, no,
if he tried to play it any particular way other than that it's the Red Sox, she's not going to believe him. And
she gave him an out, though.
Deep stuff.
She gave him an out. She actually said, you have a lot of work. When he said that, the first thing she went to was thinking that he's grading papers or something.
But you got to remember, Ken, in his eyes, he is under the impression, he's like, look, I told you from the start, the Red Sox are important in my life. So whenever he says anything that has to do with the Red Sox, for example, in that scene, I can't go to Paris, the Red Sox are 2 games out. In his mind, he thinks that her next word or her next sentence or thought is going to be, oh, I understand. Sure, right. No problem. And mean it. Like she would understand, oh, yeah, he would give up a chance to go to Paris because the Red Sox are 2 games out. And in his mind, he thinks that everyone is accepting of his priorities. And now his world is starting to crumble where he's starting to see that, yeah, it's not really making sense. I'm a grown adult and I'm putting the Red Sox above everything in my relationships.
The other thing by that scene, that makes me really not like him. And the other part of it is that scene, I have so many problems with that scene. It stops being real because there's no way in hell that an adult male is going to turn down a free trip to Paris.
Maybe he didn't have his passport.
Whatever. There's no way in hell a person's going to turn down a trip to Paris.
With the girl you love, mind you.
With the girl you love. At this point in time, you're conceivably thinking that this is going to be the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And you're going to turn that down to go to a baseball game? I love baseball. There's no way in hell. There is not one sporting event. And outside of a Led Zeppelin reunion, there's very few concerts I would ever
mean like John
miss.
Bonham coming back from the grave to drum? That kind of thing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That I would miss to come and to go to Paris.
Yeah, but
it's ridiculousness.
I don't know if it's that ridiculous because not everybody is excited about going to Paris. I wouldn't want to go to Paris. I have no desire.
Are we sure it wasn't
whatsoever.
Paris, Texas, or Paris, Tennessee? Just want to make sure, right?
But I don't have any desire to go to Paris. I have no desire whatsoever. And I love my wife, but if she said, hey, let's go to Paris, we won these tickets to go to Paris, I'd be like, do I really want to go to Paris? I mean, not everybody.
Can I cash them in?
Yeah, I would like, can we get money for them? Can we sell them? Not everybody is jumping on it. Now, his reaction initially is that he's excited with the idea of going to Paris. But here's the thing. Like Eric was saying earlier, his knee-jerk reaction is to go to the Boston Red Sox. He realizes how stupid that is, or he doesn't want to upset her. And then he backtracks and say, you know what, I can go. But she doesn't want him to go at that particular time. If he goes, guess what? They don't break up because he's leaving and he's not going to watch the Red Sox.
But she's exactly right. It's going to be weird. He's already made her second fiddle. She's going to know the whole time that they're there that this isn't where he wants to be.
Let's talk about the birthday party. The birthday party is a complete 180 from this scene where he doesn't go to that game and he goes to the birthday party. And he has, what is it? It's a Great Gatsby kind of thing,
It's a Great
right?
Gatsby party.
Roaring 20s. And he has a phenomenal time. He's dancing, he's drinking. They have a wonderful night. They come back. They're going to have an even wonderful evening, if you will. And then he finds out that, the Red Sox came back. And his reaction completely ruins everything that happened that night.
Sure.
That's really where the breakup just full-fledged exploded.
Well, that's also because of his friends and his...
Right,
and his,
really mean. Yeah.
Yeah, there's unlikable things about him. So I agree with you, Ted. He's unlikable, but then he does something that's likable. So, like, she calls him from Paris and lets him know that she's not pregnant, but he's got that onesie that he's bought because he's thinking about being a dad. So all of a sudden you like him again. And then, she comes back and says, you know what, I have to think about this because of the fact that you're going to choose so many things over me. I mean, you're going to choose the Red Sox so many times over me. And so he goes to the party. And so you like him again. So you're going back and forth, liking him, disliking him for those reasons. But let's put it this way. She's not innocent in this whole idea either. She is very focused on her job. And I understand they're two separate things. There's a career-minded individual that works 60 to 80 hours a week. So she has an obsession with her work.
Correct.
So she somewhat has blinders on too, but she's willing to at least make it work better than he is. He tried to tell her what she was getting into. He tried to explain it. She basically said, no worries.
Because she didn't think he was that obsessed.
Exactly. And not adult enough to compromise, to come to even a little bit. I mean, not a full compromise where he actually has to sacrifice anything, but just taking a couple of steps in her direction. He refuses to even do that. Even from the outset of when he becomes Red Sox Ben, a lot of the stuff that he's asking of her is kind of unreasonable. After she gets hit in the head with the baseball, she makes a very good point that she doesn't have to go to every game. I mean, she's going for a promotion at her job, which she's obviously very good at. So it's a perfect compromise for her to go to her job and work and then meet him at home after the game's over. And he's even almost unwilling to do that. That seems like it's a burden, and he does come a little bit to that. And I like this movie. I'm not going to mince any words and be coy about what my final review is going to be. If this was a different movie and she was not as nice a character, what he did after the birthday party and after the night that they spent together, she should have kicked him in the balls. He needs a wake-up call at that point because this is a regular season game. This is not like the Sox just won the World Series and he missed it. She's not asking that. This is a regular season baseball game where, yes, the Sox beat the Yankees. They play 19 times a year during the regular season. You can't sacrifice one night, and yes, it's this dramatic thing where they come back and they score 8 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning. That's all well and good. Nobody's going to be celebrating in the streets like that after a regular season baseball game where they bring out the police horses and everything like they just won the World Series. Yeah, his buddy might come and be like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. But it wouldn't have been like all over the TV like they won the World Series. It's
a little crazy.
It's ridiculous. He gets so caught up in FOMO, the fear of missing out, that it clouds everything that he does throughout the entire season. He is so ingrained in FOMO that it's not even funny. Even to the point where she has to have him put her fingers in his ears because he taped the game. Come on, man. At some point, you have to act like an adult. Yeah, somebody might have said something and you might have overheard the guy behind at the next table say something. We've all been there. We've all had stuff ruined by somebody that we've taped a game and somebody's ruined what the outcome of the game is that has any sort of passion.
Sometimes you do a podcast and you don't watch something like, let's say, Stranger Things, and somebody in the podcast tells you how season 2 goes.
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
Like Sean Astin dying in the 2nd season of Stranger Things.
What?
Exactly.
Anyway,
spoilers.
But here's the thing. So we have to know the character. First, the character is obsessed because for over the last 20 plus years, his life is the Red Sox. It is his love. It's his passion. He's known her for less than a year. And that all has to change. And I agree with you, Ted. He needs to grow up and put childish things to the side. But that's got to be hard for somebody who's relied on the Boston Red Sox to be basically his emotional support for the last 20 plus years.
It's his second family, as he said.
His second family. Look at the people that he's hanging out with at the ball club. You have the married couple who got divorced, but they still are going to the game together because they don't want to give up their tickets. All of those people around him are obsessed. Maybe not his obsession, but when he's willing to sell his tickets to separate himself from the Red Sox so he can have those type of relationships. They get all mad. You have
The sponge salesman?
Al. Ben's hand is shaking when he's trying to sign the contract. He's like, oh, you're having a stroke. Good. It's the people that he's hanging out with. Even his best friends are obsessive Red Sox fans. Almost all of them are. It's kind of weird that they're at that particular level. Like, we love sports and we're kind of a little bit obsessed with sports ourselves. But I've never had like 4 or 5 people have the same obsession at the same time, because all his friends are just sitting there drooling over Red Sox tickets. Who really does that?
Maybe if we were season ticket holders sitting in that section area, surrounded by season ticket holders that pass it down from generation to generation, we might have a different understanding, but that still doesn't change the fact about the relationship issues.
Well, it's like Lindsay's friends, their husbands, they are letting him know that this is the coolest thing that he has is season tickets to the Red Sox. And that the fact that he's not at the Yankee game to be at that party, they're letting him know that's crazy. Why would you even do that? And he said, well, the Red Sox look good and dress like Lindsay does. That's why I'm here. He does make efforts. He just has a hard time pushing forward. I'll give his character a little break because I do think there are times where he does try. It's just like Eric says, there's these knee-jerk reactions. Like you said, they overplayed it. So I don't think that phone call is really what pushes him over the edge. It's when he turns on the TV, he's hearing things like nuns are dancing on cars, policemen are drinking with underage children and stuff like that. It paints this picture like this is the greatest win in the history of the Red Sox. And with his obsession with the Red Sox,
and he wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
It's
and
FOMO.
so I can understand to a certain point why he freaked out. If my wife told me that I couldn't go hang out with my friends at a game or something like that, and you all went to the game and it was one of the greatest comeback, let's say in Bears history, I would be frustrated and be mad. I wouldn't probably be what he was in this movie, but there would be some frustration. Maybe I wouldn't talk to my wife the rest of the night. Sometimes these things are important to us. I hope I would be better than that. I don't have season tickets for anything, but I've been to Bear games and White Sox games and Bull games, and I went to go see the Bears come back from 16 points down to the 49ers, and that is a really wonderful time of my life. It's one of my favorite moments ever. If I had an opportunity to go to that game and I didn't go because of a relationship, that could strain the relationship a little bit. I could see that. Maybe not to the extent of here, but I could see it to a certain point.
This brings up an interesting point, too, because the third character in this movie really is the Red Sox. We don't understand this because I guess we're not Red Sox fans.
Sure, I think Red Sox fans are the third character, not the extra Red Sox.
I don't know how to tread here real lightly, but based off of what I know and what I've seen through ESPN and various other things that I've read, I don't know if you could do this story with any other fandom, because the Red Sox fans are a particularly rabid breed of fan. They are as obsessive as this. I just don't think that there's another fandom that's this obsessive, because essentially the Red Sox have captivated an entire region of the United States, and they're all combined in a mutual hatred of the Yankees.
That's right.
We get this pounded down our throat every year when ESPN feels the need to show all 19 of the Yankees Red Sox games on TV because supposedly the greatest rivalry in sports. I understand that all of these people around him are really dictating a lot of what he feels, but to hurt your significant other the way he does is really uncalled for. He just doesn't have any self-awareness. He feels like by him hurting her the way he does in that scene, that's some justification for her making him miss this game. It's a weird thing, and maybe you have to be a Red Sox fan to understand this. It's the little things that he does, too. He's happy that she buys all of the books to catch up, and so she's educated as much as everybody else. So she's trying to learn about his fandom, but he's not willing to help teach her, because the moment she starts to ask any questions, they don't rip on her. They make her.
Yeah, they do.
They make her. They make her feel horrible for asking about what or the fact that she doesn't know what the curse of the Bambino is. Now, here again, all three of us and a lot of the people that I guarantee you that are going to listen to the podcast are going to know what the curse of the Bambino is. But my wife likes baseball. Before we started going out, if I had asked her what the Curse of the Bambino was, she's not going to know.
Sounds like a Humphrey Bogart movie.
She's going to know, right? It does. But now today, she's going to know what it is because I've told her and she's become part of my sports knowledge base. But they're even mean to her about that. And I get it that that's a hard thing. And we have a lot of friends that were Cub fans that dealt with a lot of the same stuff over the Curse of the Billy Goat and things of that nature. But Red Sox fans reveled in misery. And I know they play it off as a joke of him hitting rock bottom, like watching the Buckner game, the 6th game of the 1986 World Series. And they reveled in that misery. I don't even think that the Cubs fans reveled as much in their misery as the Red Sox fans did. It's unfortunate. But like I said, I still like this movie a lot. I think he becomes unlikable in a lot of instances, and none so much as when he essentially loses it over a regular season game. I don't know, man.
Yeah, but I think it sets it up so when he does try to sell his tickets, it is an amazing effort because even she says nobody has given up something that big in their life for her, and she's never given up something that big in her life for anybody else. So I do think they're trying to set up the importance of those tickets at the end of the movie. But I get that sometimes I do a little cringe. Come on, dude, really? You're going to act that way? But I could understand her when she brings her laptop and all her friends are frustrated with her and he's frustrated with her because they're at a game. I make fun of people that are on their cell phones and are not watching their game. I mean, why are you here if you're not going to watch the game? And granted, she's trying to balance both. And she tries, even at the beginning, when they're passing out the tickets to figure out who's going to what game, they go into his room and she said, I have to concentrate on my promotion. Maybe she should have only gone to weekend games or, one game a week. She did try to set those boundaries, but he wanted both things. He wanted her and the Red Sox at the same time, and he didn't know how to do that. I would think this is probably his longest relationship ever. So when he gets to 6, 7, 8 months, I'm thinking he's in new ground here. He doesn't know how to respond because I don't think he's had a relationship this long because every time baseball season showed up, he probably lost whoever he was with.
I like how her friends always are saying there's something wrong with this guy.
One of the reasons why she doesn't date him at the beginning of the movie is because of her career and maybe because of his status. He's a teacher. He doesn't have the income that she has. They're not on the same playing field. And she needs some of her friends to try to convince her that it's okay to date a teacher. Her one friend does not. And that's a very interesting relationship there where she's the head of the family. So you have the husbands introducing their wives, but she introduces her husband at the end. So, I mean, this is 2005. So it is a little different to see that. I like her friends more than I like his friends. His friends seem to be just kind of there to support his Red Sox obsession, where they're there to support her in her love life, her career. I think they're more well-rounded friends than what he has on the Red Sox
His
side.
friends are a bunch of man-childs just like him.
So I really do like the relationships she has and the fact they do different things together. Whereas it seems like the only thing that him and his friends do are go to Red Sox games.
Right.
But we see, though, he does have anger issues. When she rejects him, he goes out and plays football. And it's two-hand touch, and he's like lowering his shoulder to get, to bounce off of people.
Yeah, he turns into Jim Brown.
But I will say this, though, when he needs to be funny, it is very funny. He makes up for the character's faults by being so likable at the beginning of the movie.
And from what we can see, he is a really good teacher.
Yeah.
But this is a major conflict that I have in the movie with myself because there are so many aspects of him that I do like. I think he's an incredibly caring person. Any teacher worth their salt is such a caring person and giving person of themselves that I immediately admire that. And he's really good with the kids. The fact that he's willing to take time out of his own schedule to take certain kids to go visit and see what a business with numbers is like, it shows just how much he really does care. And because there is a lot of really good aspects to his character. In a way, I feel hurt too when he does some of the stuff that he does because I do get invested, and this happens every time I watch the movie. This is a movie, I'll be perfectly honest, that it Shawshanks me every time. No matter if it's on, no matter where I catch it in the movie, I always watch it to the end. I get invested in his character because there is so much that I do care for that it almost hurts my feelings that he acts the way he does, because it's kind of irrational. And I guess obsession with a sports team can be irrational.
Anything could be irrational.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be. It could be gambling. You could be obsessed
Well,
with gambling.
yeah, that's a
Well,
different.
and that's a problem, but so is being obsessed with a baseball team like this. Their obsessions can be in so many different forms. It could be drinking, it could be gambling, it could have a sex addiction that can ruin your life. There's so many things that can ruin your life, because you're talking about the caringness of his character. And I think one of the other things that why you probably get frustrated is because you are rooting for him. You want him to find love. You want him to find something other than the Red Sox to be in his life. So when he goofs up, you're upset with him because I think you are rooting for him. But here's the thing. When he goes to visit Lindsay on their first date and she's sick, he comes in and eventually he takes care of her. He nurses her back to full strength. Beautiful thing. Cleans
It
the
is
toilet.
a little weird, though.
The brushing the teeth of the dog is a little weird.
But the whole thing is a little.
But he's a very
odd.
caring guy. Yeah, it's
very
weird,
caring,
but,
though. Yes, it's very endearing, but
Yeah.
it is a little weird.
but it does have one of the best lines. I promise I won't look. Okay, I looked. You chuckle a little bit at that. I mean, maybe 2022, maybe you don't chuckle at it, but 2005, you definitely chuckle at it. When he's knocking at the door and she opens up and she goes to go throw up, one of the things he's saying is, "Are you faking it?" He's a little perturbed that she's sick. So right there, you can see all aspects of his character at the beginning of this relationship. You could see that he doesn't have confidence with relationships because of his love for the Red Sox. And then you could see how caring he can be. And then you could see how funny he can be with talking about Annie Hall and Roadhouse. And
that's funny.
He's a likable character, but I think they do a good job of showing all sides of his character. And what I think I like about this character is I do think this character is a little bit more real. I mean, we all have had relationships that didn't work. Why didn't they work? Was it because of an expectation that we didn't meet from the person that we were dating? And vice versa. Maybe we didn't meet their expectations or they didn't meet ours. I mean, I like this movie because I do think it's kind of real in some aspects. I think the overboard with the Red Sox thing is crazy. But like I said, addiction to anything can ruin relationships. And some people find out way too late. They're like married 5 or 10, 15, 20 years, and they're stuck in this relationship when it was doomed from the start because of an obsession.
It's like a PSA from Ken.
Yeah.
And you're right. Addictions, it's not a drug addiction, but it is an addiction. And it's something he has to overcome. And like any good rom-com, you're going to overcome that in the end.
If you look at the last movie we reviewed, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, they're focused so much on their jobs that they don't mind hurting somebody else. They don't mind breaking somebody's heart to get the job that they want. Why? Because they're obsessed in the field that they're in. So they don't mind stepping over people. So it can work in so many different kind of ways.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I know we've talked a lot about Ben and Lindsay. This is one of those rare instances that the secondary characters, the movie works even though they're not as prominent in the movie as other romantic comedies. While they add some funny things here and there sprinkled throughout the show, they really don't add anything to the main storyline between Ben and Lindsay.
And the Red Sox. Yeah. It's clearly three main characters, as you said earlier. Yeah. Clearly.
And so, and I think that's a testament to Fallon and Barrymore here, because they are able to care and make the viewer care about their two characters without having any support. And you really don't need any of the support. I think a testament to the both of them. And I think that's one of the things, if we go back to the original point at the beginning of the discussion about, do they have chemistry? I think they do. And I think that they perform well enough that the other characters, they're needed in just the parts that they are, which is extremely secondary.
The one thing I liked about this movie, as compared to other movies we talked about, I know one of Ken's big pet peeves is backstories. We'd like to know the backstory on some of these people. Why don't we know the backstory? In this one, we know the backstory on Jimmy Fallon's character very well as to why he is a Red Sox fan and how it evolved from him going to that first game with his uncle and how he inherited the tickets. And you could see the evolution from when he was a 7-year-old kid to where he is now. It's clear as day as why he is a Red Sox fan and obsessed the way he is, which you got to like. I do like that they did go into 5 or 10 minute backstory at the beginning of the movie as to why he falls into this category.
And that's so important because of the fact we have fathers and uncles and stuff. I connect with my dad through sports. I fall in love with sports through my dad. So you have Ben's character here fall in love with the Red Sox through his uncle. Because his parents are divorced, it doesn't appear to have a father figure in his life anymore. And his uncle becomes that. And how do they connect together? Through the Red Sox. We don't see a picture of his dad in his house. We see a picture of him and his uncle. So I love the fact that you have the little bit of a backstory here. And I think the obsession is because it made him connect with his uncle. Not just because it's the Boston Red Sox, but because it allowed him and a family member to enjoy something together. And I think that's
he's carrying on that legacy of his uncle. He knows how important the Red Sox were to his uncle.
I completely understand that, and I get that as well. I also love Lenny Clark as his uncle. I think he's a very funny comedian. The reason that I am as big a baseball fan as I am is because of my grandfather. He was the reason that we would go down to Busch Stadium and see the Cardinals at least 3 or 4 times a season.
Then why aren't you a Cardinals fan?
I am still. I don't follow them the way I did when I was 7 or 8.
So if Ted was in this character of this movie, why is Ted not a Cardinals fan and a dedicated White Sox fan?
The main reason of that is proximity.
Okay, so that's it? It's just proximity.
I've always liked the White Sox as well. In my grandpa's house, you could not follow the Cubs.
Okay, I'm just looking for kind of like a basic why you weren't a Cardinals fan, as you brought up that you follow the Cardinals with your grandfather.
My grandfather, prior to World War II, was actually in the very, very bottom minor leagues of the Cardinals farm system as a catcher. And so everything was the Cardinals. And I was only like 3 or 4, but it was the 1982 Cardinals that won the World Series.
The strike year Cardinals.
Yeah. And then 85 losing to the Royals, and then 87 losing to the Twins. I can remember those memories as vividly as anything. And I had Cardinals pennants, I had a Cardinals jersey, I had Cardinals shirts. Everything was the Cardinals.
I asked that question because it kind of relates to the movie, is the fact that if you're watching this movie and you didn't grow up with a family member that was obsessed with a team or aligned with a team, I know, Ken, in your household, I assume it was White Sox.
Actually, it wasn't. My dad actually liked both Sox and Cubs, but he took me to more White Sox games as a kid. So that kind of set the White Sox for me because of that relationship with my father. But I'm mostly a Bears fan because from probably the age of 5 until probably adulthood, I don't think I missed a Bears game because of that connection with my dad. It was something me and him could talk about. My dad wasn't religious. My dad went to work. He worked hard, but the one thing that he enjoyed watching was sports. And you both know my dad very well, and he's a very passionate guy. He likes his sports. He likes his poker. Those are the things I do. I play poker. Why? Because my dad likes to play poker. I watch sports. Why? Because my dad likes to watch sports. Those are great connections to have.
You can relate to this a little bit more when it comes to that kind of family obsession than me. I did not have that kind of, or do not have that kind of relationship with my father when it comes to loyalty to a team. My loyalty is with the Islanders when it comes to hockey because my dad liked the Islanders, but I didn't grow up, all Islanders in my household. So for me, watching this movie, I don't have that kind of family sense of loyalty when it comes to a generational pass down of a love of a team or a love of ticket holder or anything to that effect. I think if you're watching it from that perspective, you can really relate to this movie more and probably relate more to Jimmy Fallon's character more. Where I know, Ted, you said guy's an idiot. If you grew up in that kind of household, you'd be like, well, I kind of see where he's coming from.
If it was young me, yeah, I understand. I think part of it too, though, is growing up. I can't really speak for the 42-year-old me right now because I'll be perfectly honest. I've had my sports heart broke a lot, especially with the people that I idolized as a kid. Now, essentially having that whole period of baseball be considered null and void, like it doesn't even exist. And that the guys that I looked up to and I liked are considered cheaters now. And that hurt. That hurt a lot. It sucks. Your original question to me about why White Sox, it is a family member. That's who my father-in-law likes. And a part of it was I had always liked the White Sox. I loved Frank Thomas growing up in the 90s. I thought he was awesome. And I was just awed by how he could hit. But then moving up here to be with my wife and marry her, her dad is a huge White Sox fan. We would go to the White Sox games. And it was even more solidified when I met Ken. And all of our group is White Sox fans. That just solidified my love for the White Sox. But so it was family because Ken is essentially my family too. It's extremely personal to me. I've had my heart broke, especially with baseball. It's kind of sad
Jimmy
for me.
Fallon's character as well.
And that's what I like about this. The line that I had at the beginning was, I like being part of something that's bigger than me, than I. It's good for your soul to invest in something you can't control. And
Which is true.
I like that. I mean, when I connect to this character, there's part of me that wants to be invested like he is into something like that. There is a part of me that wants to be at all 81 home games for the White Sox. It's like you're part of something that's, outside of, let's just say, family. There's something about that I do crave.
A little bit of jealousy, right? You're like,
a
that
little
just
bit,
sounds so cool.
A little bit. So
Yeah.
I understand when that game, one of the best games ever in Red Sox Nation, happens and he's not part of it, something is missing all of a sudden. So I kind of understand it. I do think they go way overboard. I definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see the connection there. I play poker all the time. I go to these poker leagues. Sometimes I feel like if I don't go one night, that would have been my opportunity to win, or something interesting may have happened. So I kind of understand to a certain extent what he must be going through. I think Jimmy Fallon pulls it off really well for the most part. I do think he has some limited acting abilities when showing sadness and balancing that off with the anger. But for his first major role as a leading man, it's not bad. He's never going to be, like you said, Matthew McConaughey or other leading men in that particular area. He's not even going to be probably Adam Sandler here.
Let's hope not.
Well, again, Adam Sandler is a big rom-com guy with Drew Barrymore. He's done the 51st Dates. He's done The Wedding Singer. And he's done Blended. And those are actually decent movies. All three of them are actually really good. In fact, The Wedding Singer is probably one of my favorite rom-coms. So you can say what you want about Adam Sandler. He does make really crappy movies.
No, I'm talking about Adam Sandler now.
Yeah.
With his little Netflix contract he's got.
Oh, yeah.
We can say that, but he's got $618 million in the bank.
$1 trillion to his name, yeah.
But when he's paired up with someone like Drew Barrymore,
and he's pretty good with Jennifer Aniston, too. I will say, even though those movies are crap, there are a few redeeming qualities to some of them.
Right.
Where I can connect is not with baseball with Ben. I understand the feeling of the fandom. The only thing that I still hold close to my heart is Notre Dame football. That's because I'll never forget the moment that I walked into Notre Dame Stadium with my dad. It was one of the most amazing things that I've ever done with my dad, and see the gold helmets run out of the runway and to hear the fight song. If I thought about it long enough, I could probably start to cry. It was a moving thing. I understand Ben to a certain extent. Like, I'm not so much now, but I would record, and I still do, every Notre Dame game.
I don't tell Ted whatever the scores are. I never tell him.
It's one of those things that I still do. And I get it, but a part of that is having the experience of walking into that stadium. There's just nothing like it. So I understand Ben, but I would never sacrifice my relationship with my wife.
Here again, but it's your wife, not a girlfriend, and a girlfriend of less than a year. And let's also think about it. This is his second family. He talks about them as part of his summer family. And these are important people to him. The Red Sox Nation is his family. He's embraced that. And it's only been 11 months. I can understand why he's choosing Boston over his relationship.
Yeah, I think the writers put him in some very unfortunate circumstances, because really, how many people are going to have the opportunity with a free trip to Paris like that? It's a ridiculous thing to put him in that situation. One thing before we wrap this up, I want to touch on this. There are certain times when you're making a movie that it's almost like you get struck with a bolt of lightning that's luck. How immensely lucky are the Farrelly brothers? By all accounts, both of them are super mad Red Sox fans, like as big as Damon and Affleck. For them to be filming a movie about the Red Sox, and it just so happens they have one of the most magical moments in sports history where they come back from being 3 down in the championship series before they go to the World Series.
And they need extra innings
Right.
in 2 of those games just to avoid elimination. I mean,
Yeah.
it is amazing.
It was an incredible season.
And speaking of go to the Cardinals, thank the Cardinals organization for allowing the Farrelly brothers to film on the field as the Red Sox are celebrating their World Series victory, because all of that's real. I remember watching the game because it's one of those things that I'll never forget. I remember watching the series, and Joe Buck even commented that Drew Barrymore and Jimmy Fallon were on the field as they were celebrating.
I remember that.
Wow. The moment that happened, this movie was going to be gold.
Well, Boston fans probably went to the movie theater by himself and made up the...
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
But it also brings up a certain sports thing for me as well that I get excited when it gets to the end of the movie. And because there are certain moments in sports history that we've been so lucky to see, even if you're not a diehard fan of those teams, it makes me excited when I see those clips. I watched every single one of those games against the Yankees. The Red Sox were dead, and the movie can barely even contain how dead they were. The Yankees had scored, 21 runs or 19 runs the game before?
Right, and I think it was like 19-8 or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, they demolished them, and the score wasn't even that close. What the Red Sox did, they beat the best closer in the history of baseball. There's nobody as solid as Mariano Rivera. And for them to make that comeback is one of the most amazing things in sports history. And even though we're all pretty much White Sox fans or Cardinal fan, as I was, and still am to a certain extent, I still thoroughly enjoyed watching the Cubs win in 2016. Those are seminal moments that's like, holy crap, man. There's very few of those moments in sports left. You have to really love sports to understand that. That gets me excited every time when they get to the end of the movie. And even though they do the crazy thing where she runs on the field, which is completely unrealistic, and anybody who knows anything about sports knows that she would have been tackled by some 300-pound security guard.
Well, maybe not because she was a woman. Maybe she wouldn't be tackled, but they would have not let her have a discussion with him about. They would have just arrested her and take her away.
She would have been sacked like Lawrence Taylor hitting Joe Theismann.
I don't think she would have been sacked.
Out in the outfield.
Because if they would have heard her, then she would have sued. So I don't think they would have done that.
The announcers would not have mentioned it, and they wouldn't have broadcast
it. No,
in
2004
would have never made it to the dugout.
2004, they would have. In 2004, they would have broadcast that. Now they wouldn't do that because they don't want to give people the idea that they can just go out and do that. One more thing I want to add about this relationship, this obsession thing. Let's flip it on its ear and talk about Lindsay's character. Would Lindsay give up her career for Ben? I have a feeling that she probably wouldn't have done that either because of how much she invested in her job. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think she would have given up her job for Ben?
I don't think she would have.
I don't know.
She had her own obsession. He was obsessed with the Red Sox. She was obsessed with her job. She tried to make it work between them both. But honestly, an obsession with her job, I don't think was as extreme as the obsession that he had with the Red Sox.
I mean, she does make the comment right after he visits, and she does have that moment where she's like, maybe I should be a teacher, and she knows that she's very successful with what she does. I don't know if she would have given up the promotion or the job. I'm not fully 100% that she wouldn't have. I'm a little more seesaw on that. The case could be made that yes, she would, and I think the case can be made that no, she wouldn't. I don't know.
No, I understand that. She's very competitive in the business aspect. Her friends even say that. And this has been her whole life, too. She's worked her whole life to get this promotion. And it's going to be hard for her to give that up for Ben, just like it's hard for Ben to give up his tickets for her. So I do like the fact that Ben does give up the tickets or tries to give up the tickets at the end because we need to see that from him. We really don't need to see it from her. We definitely need to see it from him.
I also like the fact that the writers did show some restraint in not making her make that decision because she doesn't have to give up her promotion to run to the playoff game and stop him. I think that would have been too much. even though everything is kind of very fanciful and how that all works, her getting to that playoff game, I think that would have been as unfair to her as choosing either Paris or a weekend Boston game that the writers put on Ben. So I'm glad that they did show some restraint there.
All right, well, we're coming up to that point now where we're going to talk about our reviews of this movie. Ted, why don't you, in the leadoff position, give us your review here?
Thanks, Eric. I enjoy this movie tremendously. I mean, I've already said that this is a movie that Shawshanks me. And for people who don't know what that reference is a lot of people, when they see Shawshank Redemption on TV, they have to stop what they're doing and to watch it to the end. This movie does that to me pretty much all the time. And this is a movie that it hits a lot of really good spots for me. I'm a huge sports fan, and I do like the romantic comedy. And this is the best of both worlds. As a person who loves the movie, this is also based off of another movie and book by Nicholas Hornby. It's his autobiography about his love for the Arsenal soccer team from the English Premier League. I watched the original movie. It's not nearly as good as this movie. And I think part of that is the stroke of luck that the Farrelly brothers found themselves in one of the greatest moments in sports history. The Boston Red Sox winning the World Series and breaking an 86-year drought. That was magic. And I get that with this movie. It's so funny because the problems that I have, the magic of that moment in time still permeates a lot of this movie for me. I like the story. I get invested in the story. And I like the characters. This movie is a solid B for me. It hits everything that I want. It's a movie that, ironically enough, I will watch like 2 or 3 times a year. It makes me happy. One aspect we didn't even touch on is how much I love the soundtrack of this movie. I like the Dropkick Murphys. I think even though Tessie is probably an annoying song, I love them as being the anthem of the Red Sox, even though I'm not a Red Sox fan. And I love Sweet Caroline. Call me a big dork, but I do love that song.
Dork.
Neil Diamond has a special place in my heart.
So many other teams
awesome.
have stolen Sweet Caroline, so that's...
Oh, yes. But the fact that it was written for Caroline Kennedy and the whole Kennedys of Massachusetts, and that's why this movie's a solid B. It's never going to be far from my viewing eyes, even though that I have the problems. Everything makes up for the fact that Boston Red Sox won the World Series, man. It's amazing.
Well, I wish I had your love of this movie. You make some really good points. I will admit I watched this movie again for a second time recently, and it really did help out. I watched some of the extras on the DVD, everything from the outtakes to the blooper reel to a few little introspectives on the movie. And I will say that it was very magical that the Red Sox won the World Series this year and forced the Farrelly brothers to kind of rewrite the ending of it, which they obviously had no problem with, and it actually worked out very well. The movie for me is a typical rom-com. I like the characters. I don't know. There's just something about it. I can't put my finger on it, which is kind of irritating, but it just doesn't click for me, which kind of sucks because I'm a big sports fan too, and I love a sports movie, and I like Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore. I even like the supporting cast in this, to be honest with you. It really does hit a lot of points, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't do that 100% click for me. It's a movie that if it's on TV, it's not going to Shawshank me. I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to zoom right by it. I might watch it again in the near future, but it's not when I'm going to go to the movie rack, the library there, and pull out and go, oh, I think I'm going to watch Fever Pitch. I watched it obviously because we're reviewing it, and I'm glad I did. I did enjoy watching it. I haven't seen it in many, many, many years, and I do like some of the one-liners from it. I do like Jimmy Fallon's sarcasm, and I love Drew Barrymore. She's phenomenal in this. And I know, and it hurts me because I can't really say anything negative or bad about the movie. And it's not like I'm going to give the thing like a really bad rating, but I just don't have your love of this. I don't know what Ken's love of it is, but I just don't have the love that you would watch it over and over again. And if it's on TV, you're going to watch it. For me, it's borderline. I'm really on the cusp here. C+, B-. First time I watched it, I probably would have given this thing a C+, clearly. I watched it the second time. We talked about it. I think I'm going to mark it up to a B-, which isn't really too bad. It's not too far off from yours. Ted of being a B, but it's like 80. If you're going on the grading scale, it's like 79, 80. It's right there. You need that extra credit question to put it over the top of a B minus. It's not a bad movie. It's a fun rom-com. We mentioned some other ones that I think are far superior that I would rather, watch. The Wedding Singer comes to mind, but it's not a bad movie. I know I'm babbling here. I just can't put my finger on it, but it's just something that just did not give that full click. B minus for me. Ken, take us home and clean up. What do you got? Home run? Triple?
This movie does have some faults. I mean, it's not a perfect movie by any means. I think because I am a White Sox fan and the White Sox won it the next year and we broke our own somewhat curse because it had been forever since the White Sox had won a World Series. So
yeah, because you blew 1983.
And then we had other years. We had the strike year. There's so many opportunities.
59.
59, yeah.
I wasn't born and I wasn't around in 59. So there was a little bit of connection with the Red Sox and the White Sox and watching this movie. This was a movie that I would watch over and over again over the last 15 years. Last couple of years I hadn't watched it. In fact, I don't think I have watched it in the last couple of years, which was a good thing actually, because it allowed me to watch it and just sit back and remember how much I enjoyed it even the first time I ever saw it. Drew Barrymore, like I said, I love a lot of things that she's in. This is a perfect movie for her. For Jimmy Fallon, this is his best work as an actor, even with his limitations. I like his character. I like him as a school teacher. I like the fact that he has these connections with the kids and that his kids like him. One of the kids, like when he's throwing a football and hits one of the teachers, he uses one of the kids to blame it on the kid and he's like, I'll get you later. Then
I
later,
love the kid in a neck brace, too, through the football, right? That's a perfect kid to snag, right?
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's the same kid later that has a broken arm. So he basically, he writes the number of which question's going to be on the quiz.
Right.
Because he's paying him back for saving his butt when he threw the football. I like him as a teacher. I think he's a lot of fun there. I like him and Drew Barrymore's character together, especially at the beginning and into the midpoint of the movie. When they're getting to know each other, she's interested because he's funny. She's amused by the way he does things.
That scene where they're grilling in the park.
Right. Exactly.
That was kind of cool.
That's when I accepted them as a couple. I don't know if I accept them grilling in what's probably February. So if there's a time issue, that's probably it. But I like the conversations. I like how he accepts her. We didn't mention her parents and stuff like that and going out to eat with them. And them making fun of her father basically looking like Count Dracula with all the dark hair and then basically...
We're seeing him on spring training on TV going, look at that asshole.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh.
The parents are a little underused here because I'm a big Jo Beth Williams fan. I think Jo Beth Williams is an awesome actress. Would have liked to see a little bit more of the parents play a part, maybe say something, maybe deterring her from seeing this guy, even though he was nice enough to take him out golfing. I would have liked to seen the backup characters maybe play a little bit more into the relationship. I think the women's side did a little bit, but the men's side really didn't have anything to do with the relationship whatsoever. It was just straight Red Sox.
Hey man, they're guys, right? It's guys. Yeah,
I guess, but
he's a ticket holder. He's controlling everything. So.
I just think that the female friends are more well-rounded than the male friends. This is a movie that I will watch over and over again. This movie for me is an A-.
Whoa, A-.
It's not an A or an A+ because of the limitations of Jimmy Fallon as an actor. Basically, like Ted says, it checks marks everything off for me. I'm a big sports fan, so I'm enjoying the sports aspect of it. And I like Drew Barrymore. And I do like Jimmy Fallon here. And the Farrelly brothers lucked out. I watched the original Fever Pitch myself. I was bored. Got a little bit better as it went on. But it's a different kind of movie.
The Ben character in the original movie is as unlikable as Ben can be in some aspects. Colin Firth plays a horrible man. Yeah. I don't know why the lady even falls in love with him.
There's nothing redeeming for him. They don't set up his character very well, whereas like we just talked about Jimmy Fallon here, he's likable at the beginning of the movie because he is this teacher that all the kids like. But not only is he a teacher that the kids like, he's a teacher that's invested in his kids. So it's just not like he's playing a clown or anything to them. He's actually invested in his kids. He helps with the baseball program. And he takes the kids on a field trip. I love the little race that he has between the two students to get the right answer. I think that was kind of cool too. And then he gets in trouble with the other teacher. I like the character a lot. It puts a smile on my face. At no point do I get frustrated with this movie to the point where I have to turn it off. This movie, A-.
I'll admit I didn't see that one coming. I was thinking somewhere in the B's, but an A-. All right, rock on. Well, there you have it. Ted, what are we going to be reviewing next? I know this is a newer movie, which kind of bucks our tradition of some of the older classics. We're doing something from 2020. Give us a little preview of what we'll be doing next.
The next movie we're going to do is from 2020. It was one of the only movies that was released during the heart of the pandemic that actually made it into the movie theaters. It's The Broken Hearts Gallery.
And I will admit I've never seen this movie, so this will be a first time for me. Very looking forward to it. Ken, have you seen it?
Nope, I haven't seen it yet.
We're going to look forward to seeing that one. Ted, tell us where they can find us on Twitter.
We can be found on Twitter at movie_marquee with 2 E's. And of course, you can find us on whatever platform you're listening to us on, whether it be Spotify or Apple Podcast or Anchor. If you're on Apple or Spotify, give us a rate and review. It allows us to be seen by more eyes. To show us your support by doing that would be a great help.
Very cool. And Ken, I've noticed a lot of activity on our Facebook page. Some of the questions we've posed, some of the articles, we're getting a lot of reactions, a lot of comments. Anything highlighted that comes up?
One of the questions is, what is your favorite rom-com? Chad had mentioned one of his favorite movies, 10 Things I Hate About You. He also mentioned Taming of the Shrew, which I've not seen the most recent movie of that.
Or read the book.
Or read the book. Books? I don't have time for books. That's why I watch movies.
Books? Print is dead.
Can't Buy Me Love, Sweet Home Alabama, Pretty Woman, and some other movies that he had mentioned.
Who liked Sweet Home Alabama?
That would be Chad. Chad had put it on his list.
Be nice, Ted.
I definitely like Pretty Woman. That's like a guilty pleasure for me, Guilty Woman.
You have a
Pretty
baby
Woman.
in a bar.
Tom mentioned How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, so somebody else
There you go.
likes it.
I'm not alone. How about that?
Mark said Must Love Dogs. And then Justin, I don't think this is a rom-com, Justin, but Aliens 3.
Well, it's not a rom-com, but okay.
It's sci-fi rom-com, maybe.
10 Things I Hate About You. I really like that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable film. I like it. If you are interested in joining in the conversation, feel free to look us up on Facebook. It's the Movie Marquee with 2 E's, and request to join our discussion, and we will approve you. So,
And I own Sweet Home Alabama, by the way. But
really?
It's not necessarily that good. Sorry.
Did they make a sequel?
God, I hope not.
I maybe they didn't. I
Sweet
don't know.
Home Chicago?
Sweet Home Chicago,
Right.
yeah. I've seen that one too, but I can honestly say I do not own it. Nor would I
do
probably
not.
watch it again. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Definitely stay tuned for our next movie. We're all going to be looking forward to that one since 2 of the 3 of us have not seen it. So our virgin eyes and ears are going to get a view of that movie. And Ted, again, what is that movie we're going to be seeing?
The Broken Hearts Gallery.
Broken Hearts Gallery. All right, everyone. Thank you and have a pleasant tomorrow. We'll see you next time.
See you at the movies.
See you next time at the Movie Marquee.